axles. So we're putting in the rear diff. Actually, we're swapping it out. And I'm going to go over some stuff that's kind of convoluted. And there's like information from 2012 on the internet. There's not really anything conclusive. So we have DSM rear diff. Everyone knows what these are. They come in 3-bolt rear end and then 4-bolt. 4-bolt, obviously you can see over there. There's 2 and 2. 4 bolts mount to the hub side. These either in 4-bolt fashion will make it easy. They only came in LSD. Some people say there are 4-bolt non-LSD. I don't think there is. And we're not talking about 2G either. So this is specifically for 1G 90-94. So this has been rebuilt, as you can see. Mine, if you remember from previous videos, has a lot of, I think it's called lash or end play. But basically you can turn this before it ever engages, or you can hear the gears engaging on mine. So this came up for sale, and I was like, it would be cheaper just to buy this than to send mine in, have it rebuilt at probably the same price or more. And this one's upgraded. So that leads me in the next part of what I'm going to say. Everyone's familiar with the open diffs on DSMs. So the front 2 wheels, if you will, are open. Unless you get an LSD, like a Quaif, Kaz, whatever, that will lock or disengage and engage your front 2 wheels. Then you have, gotta love Capri Suns, so quenching. Then you have the center diff. So the center diff, also viscous from factory. So viscous, it has basically plates inside and a very sticky fluid. And these plates kind of like engage each other because this fluid is so tacky. And it has the ability, once one starts slipping, then the other one will start to spin. Not very reliable, and then over time it can just not work anymore. So viscous center, that locks the front to the rear. So if your front starts to slip, the viscous will start to spin and engage the rear. Well, so if you upgrade your transmission, go to a dog box, whatever, a lot of times you'll lock the front and rear so it's 50-50 split. So the rear end, it was only available in the viscous for the US cars and the DSMs. So you have the same thing as the center diff in here, the plates and the sticky fluid, and when one starts to spin, eventually it'll lock the other side or go back and forth. I tried this on an old 90 Talon I had in snow. I was kind of uphill, and it was snowy, and only one rear and then one front would ever spin. So I'm like, well, if it's rear viscous, shouldn't both at some point be spinning? That was just kind of my backstory on all-wheel drive and differentials and all that. So enter the mechanical differential found in the EVO II, possibly EVO I, EVO II, EVO III RS, and GSR. So this is not the diff from it, but the housing, diff housing. Inside of this is the EVO III style mechanical differential, and it has friction plates, not like a viscous, similar but not exactly, and it's not sealed. So the plates in here are exposed to the fluid inside here, whereas the viscous, I don't think I mentioned it before, viscous are welded together, they're sealed, so there's fluid inside the viscous coupler, then there's different fluid outside of it in the transmission or in the rear end. So somebody at some point found out a way to get the mechanical style, so think like a Kaz or Quaif is helical, but similar concept. It's still an LSD. There's Cusco, and just other mechanical style differentials that enable the same type of LSD behavior that you get in the front wheels if you do an aftermarket LSD up front, but now you have it in the rear. So it makes the rear end much more predictable. You can get oversteer. It's much quicker to engage, and this is modified so that it's very tight, and it's very what's the word I'm looking for? The engagement is very positive. So you'll always have power going to both wheels no matter what. The downside is if you do tight corners, you might hear it clicking or clattering, just the discs inside of here, but it's not any worse than if you have a welded center diff that way. I've never driven in one, so I can't say for sure, but obviously afterwards I'll be able to tell you the difference. So that leads us to the next problem. Now we've got this nice DSM 1G differential assembly housing. You've got the EVO III differential inside, 12 plate discs here, like it says, and then HD cover. Cover is inside. It's not this cover. It's just what bolts the diff assembly to the housing inside. And then new seals, obviously, whenever this was rebuilt here. So this is great, but now what axles do you use? Well, that's the next biggest problem, because enter the 1G and 2G axles, and pretty much every Mitsubishi in America has two different sizes for the viscous differential, or even an open differential. It's going to have a similar setup where one is longer, one is shorter. Well, this is a problem because the mechanical diff needs two of the same type of cups, which are not the same as either one of these. So this is longer than this one and shorter than that one. So you might ask, well, where did I get these? Where do they exist? Well, obviously they exist. These are from an EVO II or EVO III. Because if you think about it, this is the differential that we have inside of here. And this is the mating and the matching axle cups. So, that is the dilemma. Where do you find 25, 30-year-old EVO cups? Well, I think DSS has them. You can get them on their custom axles. Unfortunately, those I think are 2,000, or they're pretty expensive for race axles. You can get them from EVO 2s and EVO 3s with the ones, like I said, the ones that came with the mechanical diff. Some or all EVO 1s and some EVO 2 and EVO 3s had this style differential. So yeah, you basically have to find an EVO 3, and these parts are very hard to come by. These usually go for $300 for the set. So 150 here, 150 here. In my findings, in my searching, I found that there's a very odd spec vehicle. This is the Mitsubishi GTO, aka 3000 GT, Dodge Stealth, which shared the 4-bolt design similar to the DSM. And with one spec, it was the MR version, had a hybrid mechanical differential. And lo and behold, the GTO uses the same cups as the EVO III. So if you happen to find JDM GTO MR axles, you have your cups here. I was hoping they're the same as the DSM length, but obviously the GTO is a little bit longer or wider in the back, so you can't just use these and bolt them up, unfortunately. So that's that. I'm actually going to try to sell those to someone who has a GTO and wants that style axle if they're looking for a mechanical differential. I don't think these are going to break, but I'd like to have a second set handy. These are just the bearings that go inside. You want to keep these together if you can, because they've been in there for the life of the car and technically have worn or bedded into the cup. So if you can, keep these together. I'm assuming these are all the same bearings, so if we have a bearing problem, or a spline problem here, it's not going to be hard to fix or replace those in a pinch. So lastly, before I dive into this and swap this thing out, you've got your oil. Good old Mitsubishi Diaqueen SAE 90 LSD gear oil. This is for EVOs. It has all the necessary additions or the fluids that work with the plate type LSD. So this will work. About a quart or so in here. You can also use 75 140, 75 150 or whatever it comes in, but you have to add a friction modifier, about 4 ounces for the LSD disc plates. Keep that in mind. And then we've got our EMPI CV boot kits. I don't have a, yes I do, 862154D. These are on eBay, these are on Rock Auto. These look like pretty decent replacements for the inner cups. This basically fits like that, and then you put your clamps on and grease. I didn't look for, I was hoping it was the same, but it's not. Replacement boots for the other side. These don't have the indentations or the pockets. These look okay, they're not ripped or anything, so I'm just going to leave them. But if anyone has a part number for those, let me know. I'd like to replace them at some point. So before I pull the diff though, next I'm going to cut these clamps off and then remove the old cups, clean them out, clean the axle side, and then install the new cups before I even bother pulling the diff. So if we have any complications here, it's going to make problems on the other side if we don't have axles to go in. So cut these off, and then this kit comes with everything you need. It's got the new boot, it's got your new clamps. This style, you just use that tool that pinches this and tightens it. It's got a whole packet of pre-measured grease that goes inside of there and looks like a shim or something, and then the clip for the diff side. I'll probably just leave the originals on. I'm not going to mess with an aftermarket clip hoping that it works. And this thing I'm assuming goes inside somewhere, but we'll figure that out when we get there. These are only $8 from Rock Auto. Don't pay like 20 bucks on eBay or whatever they are. So that's it. Once I'm done with this, we'll move on to the diff, pull it out, put the new one in. One more tidbit I forgot to mention about these cups. So these EVO 4 to EVO 7 used a different style where it was splined, like a female spline, and it must have had the shaft coming out of the diff, because all the axles just have like a spline part that goes in. Also, EVOs don't have the 4-bolt style. They have like a splined section like a front CV. And there is possibility that EVO 8 uses the same exact one as EVO 2 and EVO 3. My friend picks them up, and I put these side by side, and aside from like a little difference here, the length was identical. Everything was identical to an EVO 8. So it's possible you can use EVO 8 as well as EVO 2 and 3, which would be interesting. Different part number and different year altogether, but I'll keep my eyes out for those so I can check them out and do some measurements. Figure I'd tape some of this because I don't really get into the details of what I'm doing or how it gets done, but just bending these tabs back on this clamp, the factory clamp, different style they used back then. It's pretty much like it's almost like a hose clamp in a way, but we're just gonna, could probably just cut it, but I'm not in a cutting mood right now. That'll go that way, this will go this way, and I don't actually know what is holding this together. It's kind of a mystery to me. Let's see here. Okay. Oh, nothing. Okay, that makes it a lot easier. So, yeah. In case you're wondering, the circlip must hold the bearing pack here to the inside. Oh, this is nasty stuff. Nasty, nasty, nasty. You're not supposed to use any brake cleaner, solvents, anything like that for this grease. Keep that in mind. Just rag, wet rag, and then soap and water to get it out, because you aren't supposed to mix greases, and then you're not supposed to use any kind of solvent. I don't know if anyone will ever want that, but like I said, you never know. Might as well hang on to it. So this, I'm assuming, slides down, and then we can find out where that clip is. And then undo the clip, and then slide it back off the axle. This is probably the hardest part of the whole thing, is working this my way. There we go. So now we're gonna figure out where this clip is on here. Looks like it's gonna be at the end of this, I'm assuming. Yes, C-clip or circlip or whatever that's holding this assembly on there. You could cut the boot off, obviously, and just toss it, but again, why do more work than you have to? Ooh, and here's a good opportunity. Once I get this grease off, I'll actually stick this bearing, and it looks similar. I'll stick this bearing assembly in the new cups to see if in fact you can use any bearing cup, or excuse me, any bearing assembly here, or whatever you want to call it, with your EVO cups, your mechanical differential cups. I've been having like dreams about this diff for a while, like how's it gonna work, how's the car gonna feel, it's gonna be more planted. A lot of people use it for autocross and racing, road racing that way, because it's made for cornering, not necessarily drag racing, but never hurts to have more power to every wheel in any condition or circumstance. So this looks like a simple circlip here with that ring pliers, or whatever they're called, I forgot already. C-ring or circlip, or thing you squeeze and it opens it. Okay, good enough for now. Let's see if this fits. Yeah, looks like it does. So it appears you can, in a bind, use these bearings from any DSM axle in your EVO Diff. They look identical, but these are already mated to this through the life of the axle and the life of the cup, so that's really the only reason I'm going to do that. Otherwise, if I really didn't care, I would just throw it on like this. So I'll find a circlip, C-ring, whatever they're called, circlip pliers, C-ring pliers, and pop this off. Alright, so everything came off as expected. I've got the new boot on here. Don't forget to put the clamp, small clamp down, and you can drop the big one on too. Now, it says in the directions to cut a small hole in the grease pack. 1/2-inch hole specifically, no more nor less. And we're going to put our bearings on the top. There we go. Yep. And then hopefully this is not gonna... Oh, wait a minute. Why is this doing that? This is supposed to go down further. Okay. Only goes in one way, apparently. So that is enough clearance for the clip that goes on top. Oops. Do not forget this clip. Otherwise you'll be in a world of hurt. And your axle blows apart. And you're stranded somewhere. I really hate these. Like, I have the wrong tips on there. They're too small, they're too big. The clip doesn't open. I just have the terrible time. I was like, well, these are Craftsman Professional. They should be better than cheap Harbor Freight ones or whatever, but nope. And actually, I bought this really nice pack from Amazon. I don't know why I'm not using those. Let me go grab those. So in the frustration of the Craftsman, I bought this Work Pro kit off Amazon. And they're like dedicated pliers that are... I actually needed to get these for actual real work. That you have to get these off. These are incredible. You don't have to swap tips. The tips don't break. They don't bend. They're really nice. And these are too big. Oh my god. Well, maybe this isn't going to work. Well, if you have larger C-clips, then this actually works really well. But for this instance, let's see if this needle nose version fits in there. Nope. Alright. Never mind. Let's try this again. They're crappy Craftsman Professional C-ring pliers that never works correctly. Fortunately, I've never lost one of these across the room. Oh, okay, there we go. I think that's in. Yeah. So you always want to check, just make sure it's actually in the groove. This is good. So the instructions say put grease, pack it kind of in the bearings here, you know, the outside, the inside, and then the rest of the grease goes right in the boot. So it's very easy to follow directions. You just want to make sure you get it in the bearings for obvious reasons, because, you know, that looks pretty good to me. Just make sure you get any of these, all these roller bearings you see in here. Pack it in with your thumb, fingers, whatever. Really get all the grease in all the potential spots. There's some spots here on the bottom that are missing grease. And I'm all greasy. Should wear gloves or something. Okay, that looks good to me. Now, the rest, it's a good, at least 3/4 of the pack here. That goes into the cup. So I'm just gonna squeeze it in there. Not the cup, the boot. It seems excessive, seems like a lot. But I'm just doing what they say. Every box comes with a new pouch, so it's not like you split one pouch between two boots or anything. Okay, so let's... I keep hitting the camera. Okay, that's right in the way. So, get the rest of this grease on this side of the boot. The last important part is to get the air out of the boot. It says make sure to squeeze the air out of the boot before you tighten the clamps. And I actually don't even have this clamp tool with me. I have to go run home and get it. So this goes just like that. No, it doesn't. This actually goes much further down. Stand by. Okay, cup goes in. Should be a nice solid fit. Then the boot over the cup. This is looking like a brand new axle already. It's like I'm a pro. Why do I send out my axles to get rebuilt? I can just do them myself. It's actually nice that it's super tight like this, because you know it's going to be a good fit. I'd hate to use a flathead on this, but it's really difficult actually. to get this boot around all sides. The cup without the other side popping out. Okay, I think we got it. Whew. One final push here on this side. It's really slippery too, it doesn't help. Okay, come on. There we go. Oh. And there's a groove in the axle here that the bottom part rests on. So we're looking really good here. Nice fit. Doesn't look like there's any air inside here, excess. Although, oh yeah, you can hear it. If you pull this, separate the boot from the cup and kind of squeeze the cup. I think that's what a lot of people have issues with. Excess gas in their cups. No. All seriousness, if you have air in there, it could lead to failure of the boots. Your grease coming out of the boots, squeezing out, ripping, tearing, all that good stuff. So, I'm just going to give it a nice squeeze all the way around, like that, so you can hear the air escaping. And I'll do it this way. Oops, good thing that was closed. My luck that oil would be open and I just lose a quart of it. Try this over here. Yeah, we're good. We have no excess air. So that's it. That's how you make a EVO III DSM hybrid rear axle. Pretty slick. So I'm going to go grab this tool. I'm actually going to do the other axle first, then I'll grab this tool, and that way I can tighten these down. But that's it. Then we'll start with the diff. We've got, let's see, 2, 3, 4, 6 bolts on the diff. And then we got to jack up the rear end so we can spin the axles to be able to get all these bolts out of them on the hub side. And I don't even think I have to drop the exhaust to do this, so we're looking good. Okay, draining the diff. As far as I know, I put Redline shockproof in here, red, so it should be red, but we'll see. It's more like a purple by now, but it was red. Look at that, it's like grape. Yummy. After this drains, I'm going to work on the bolts. I'll get like a lift to hold this in place, and then the drive shaft. I think I'm going to have to drop, oh no. So the bolt for the right side, left side of the drive shaft is under the exhaust. That's not good, because that means I'll have to drop the exhaust. Well, yeah. I think I'm going to try to just take off the boomerang here, and then possibly that'll give me enough room to move the diff this way off of the drive shaft. Hopefully that'll work, because then I won't have to drop the exhaust down and then take off the nut for the drive shaft mount behind it. That one's right, kind of buried right there. But typically if you're going to take the drive shaft off, or at least lower it, or disconnect it from the diff, you got to undo that one. But for removing the diff from the chassis, it might be a different story. So we'll see what happens. Alright, to make things easier, I just lifted it off all 4 corners. Obviously if you had a 2-post lift, this would be a lot easier, but it is what it is. So I can actually show you how the system works. So this is kind of nice. So you see if the front wheels spin, the other side will also spin. In an open diff, or the stock diff, typically the other side will turn the opposite way, or it might not turn at all. So what's going on in the back? In the back, both rear wheels are turning forward the correct way. Now, if you turn the rear independently of the front, watch what happens when I turn this. that other side isn't moving. It kind of moves like I said, the opposite direction, which is typical in a viscous coupling or open diff. So I'm turning this wheel backwards and the other one's kind of doing its own thing, going the opposite way. If I do it forward, same thing, that one doesn't even move. When it does move, it starts to move backwards. And you can see actually the play in that rear diff, right where the pinion is. It's a good, look at how much I'm moving the tire and the wheel before that even turns. So enough on that. I just wanted to spin this so I can get this last bolt because I got frustrated. I also need to spin the wheels to get the axle bolts off the hub side. So almost done here with the prop shaft, drive shaft, and then I might actually leave that, oh I can't because the exhaust is in the way. I'm going to have to pop the axles out. So after this I'm going to pull these 4 bolts on the hub side, get the axles out, and then that's it. Just pull the 6 bolts in the diff and drop that down. Alright, moment of truth. We got all the bolts out here. The other side I just hit this with a hammer and it popped right out. And this just drops out of the way very easily. And then the best way I found, my light cooperates. Having lighting issues with my videography. Alright, so we'll switch to here. This is the diff side. There's a little gap in here between the axle and the diff housing. It's a perfect spot to insert your favorite pry bar. There's a giant pry bar. And one little pull. Of course it doesn't come out. The other side popped right out. There we go. Boom. Came straight out. Let me get that out of the way. And this is our longer side. The other side was the shorter side. So that's it. Alright, we're almost there. I had to remove the boomerang thing because, as you can see, there's little lips. Probably not. There's little lips on this bracket, so you can't drop the diff down on an angle. You have to slide the diff either out forward or out backwards to drop it down. So there's the boomerang there, and while it's actually out, I might as well put in this one I got. More work, but whatever. It's not all welded up like this one. For some reason I thought, hey, it'd be a good idea to put angle iron on top, make it stronger. No. So here's this one. It's already got this really gross polyurethane that just kind of falls out. So I'm going to use that one I bought during the subframe fiasco, and I got the bushings for that. They also made a matching set for this. So I'm going to get this out of there and then put those nice poly bushings in here. Cut all these exhaust hangers off. I think I only need 1 or 2, so I'll weld it on this one once it's installed. But might as well while it's out, right? So also, I'm glad I took these axles out because this nut was actually loose. I estimate this was probably a good 50 foot-pounds not tight enough, and I could actually hear noise when I turned the wheel. There's a little bit of play in here. So I blasted this on to 3 threads here, same as the other one, and it's tight now. Actually, it's good. So we'll see what that changes, if anything, but that was definitely a concern. So alright, out with this diff. So we've got the diff mounted. That all went smooth, no problems there. Basically ready to put the cross member boomerang part back in, and then the axles and all that. But here's what I was talking about. So I got these bushings with the subframe. It's the same company that made them. Really nice, really high quality. And I have the OEM stoppers. There's upper and lower stoppers for the stud. which is the Diff, or the bracket mustache bar mounting stud. The lower only goes on until the threads stop. And then the upper obviously is the top of the mustache bar bracket that goes all the way up. Well, my studs are larger. You can't see at all because it's pitch black. So my studs here, you see they're wider. So the only ones that fit on mine are the upper, which I was thinking obviously it could be used on both sides, but since I already have this nice upper 2-inch bar as my upper stopper, I could really just use the uppers as the lower. And I think, yeah, that's a lower. And then I think that way, that's better, I guess, lack of better words. So I'm going to use my upper as the lower, and maybe I'll buy another set of uppers so I have the uppers up here, because this I don't know what this is. It's just rubber. It's a rubber piece that's super hard on the other side, which I assume is to just, you know, rest on here and as sort of a washer, so this thing isn't just like mounted against the subframe, because it's polyurethane, and then you want to have some kind of spacer in there. So that's kind of how that would go on both sides. As long as my stud is long enough, I don't see why that would not work. Just do 2 uppers, one on the bottom, one on the top, like that, and then the other one obviously right here, other side. Plus it has this cap, so this is kind of like the finishing piece. And then when you insert they have really nice spacers here, bushings. When you insert this in here, it actually expands and tightens this whole thing to the inside, so it won't like flop around like that. And then, as always, energy suspension lubricant. I've got this little one here, but I got a whole tub of it. So that goes on here, and then you shove that in there, and it's super nice. It's supposed to prevent squeaks and all that stuff. So these go in, and then the bar goes in, then the diff gets bolted to it. Then I'll weld the bracket for the muffler or exhaust pipe axles in, and we're done. So we have a slight dilemma on this bar. Turns out the jabronis that did this before, they cut the ring out of here. See, there's like a metal ring, a 2-inch ring, and these bushings, new ones, they need that ring, otherwise it's too floppy. So I'm going to try 2-inch exhaust pipe and then just stick it in there, and that should do it, because that's kind of 3-inch works on the rear subframe if that ring is gone. So gotta wait a day, but in the meantime we've got our Diaqueen LSD gear oil. We're doing the final fill here of this beautiful yellow-green fluid. Got the axles in, everything's tightened. So all we got to do tomorrow is put the mustache bar, boomerang, brace, whatever, in and lower the car, and we're good. So we'll see how this fluid works. It's supposed to be the bee's knees for this setup, but we shall see. So I'll do probably one more video tomorrow once I get those bushings in the mustache bar, and that's really it. And then we'll do some driving impressions and a video on that. So stay tuned, not much more to go, a few minutes, and we're done. The rescue, we have a 2-inch exhaust coupler, so it's a little bit bigger than actual 2-inch. So I just powdered it in. We'll cut this in half and then use the other half on the other side. But now this fits nice and snug in there. So that's a good fit. So crisis averted. We have our insert, and we can proceed with finishing the diff. Got everything in and done. We welded the exhaust hanger here. My light blew out, so bear with me here. I gotta get another alternate light source. Okay, so this stud I have in here is not long enough to run those washers, spacers. So for now I just have the nut tightened down on the inner bushing insert, which is fine. But I would need to essentially drill a hole through the trunk, the floor, to get that stud out of there. That's a project for another day. But everything's in, everything's tightened, everything's good. So I'm gonna lower it down, go for a test drive, and let you know the impressions. Alright, here we go, first drive, EVO III Diff, rear diff. The tires chirped before because of the center diff, because it's locked 50-50, but nothing noticeable yet, especially in a straight line, obviously. I'll try to get some turns in here to see if I can feel something different. Beauty of having AC, you can just flip it on when you're cruising along, doing your testing and tuning when you're melting and it's 80 degrees out. That's perfect in here, ice cold, cool down. That's really all I use it for. I mean, I guess that's what anybody uses it for, but primarily when you're driving around, messing with stuff, testing new mods or parts, and it's like windows are up, it's hot, you're sweating, flip on the AC. So you got a turn coming up here, right hand turn. We'll hit this and see if we get any kind of noise or feel anything. No, not really. There's no noise from the rear, no clattering, no chattering. It's pretty much identical to how it was before. Alright, from a stop here, we'll do a right-hand turn, and we'll see if we get any kind of noise or anything that would lead us to indicate there's a diff that's mechanical in the rear end, and we do not. Let's do a little pull here. Predictable, no pulling. It might have felt a little bit more straight and stable now with the rear diff than prior, but it could be my imagination, but just very straight on a wide open pull, so that's good. So overall, it's not noticeable, which is a good thing, but now you know we've got power going to both back wheels properly under power. And definitely nice upgrade if you're trying to get yours repaired and you come across one, happen to, like I got lucky, found a used one. But honestly, if you're doing just even up to 1,000 horsepower, the stock rear end is fine. The viscous rear is fine. You're not going to notice any kind of difference. The difference you're going to notice with the EVO III plate type is going to be autocrossing, where you need predictable oversteer and know exactly which way the car is going to go. Things of that nature. So, thanks for watching. The cars stay together, didn't break. That's excellent. And until next time.